Hi everyone, and welcome to Lazy Lion. For our next anime review entry, we'll be covering an anime film we always like to introduce to our non-otaku friends. Cause even if they're not a fan of anime, or have never watched any before, this film is just so unbelievably good that they can't help but be won over by it. The film we're talking about is Sword of the Stranger, an epic samurai tale released in 2007 by Studio Bones, that's full of perseverance and redemption, and is sure to captivate and move you as only such a tale could. And if you like the last anime series we covered, Moribito, Guardian of the Spirit, then you'll definitely love this one as well, since they share a similar vibe and theme of a bodyguard hired to protect a child from impossibly overwhelming forces. They're also both just so incredibly well animated, with top-tier action scenes, badass characters, and of course, lots of heart. Sword of the Stranger just has the added bonus of being told in a mere 1 hour and 43 minutes, which is perfect if you don't have the time to sit through a whole series. In this video, we'll be covering the story and creative process of Sword of the Stranger, as well as the history behind the true quest for the Elixir of Life. So if that sounds interesting, stick around. And if you like this video, don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons to let us know. Now, let the adventure begin. Cue the intro. The story takes place in the Sengoku period, when Japan was rife with civil war, and follows the plight of a young boy and his dog as they go on the run from a handful of Ming assailants, who are under the outlandish impression that his blood might be the key to granting the Ming Emperor eternal life. You know, because some eunuch foretold it or something. As they flee through the countryside trying to make their way to the temple of Mangaku in the hopes of being able to find refuge there, they come across a nameless warrior taking shelter from the cold. Validly wary of strangers, Kotaro tries to drive him off and discourages any attempts at friendliness. Tobimaru, on the other hand, quickly warms up to the stranger, even offering to share his supper. What a good boy. This fragile truce is soon rudely interrupted by a Ming assassin and his Japanese interpreters, who were alerted to their location by the cooking smoke. As Kotaro and Tobimaru try to get away, the stranger gets unwillingly pulled into the conflict. But as the fighting continues, it quickly becomes apparent that this stranger is a skilled swordsman, though he mysteriously refuses to draw his blade. This handicap almost seems to get the better of him, but Tobimaru charges in and shields him from a fatal attack, becoming poisoned in the process. This propels the stranger to ruthlessly dispatch their attackers. With the fight finally over, Kotaro demands that the nameless warrior take responsibility and save Tobimaru's life, since he technically risked his own life to save him. And though seemingly reluctant at first, the stranger finally agrees, stating that he does in fact owe Tobimaru, not only for saving his life, but also for sharing his meal. The promise of being paid a piece of jade worth 10 gold coins doesn't hurt either. With that, the nameless warrior accepts the job of becoming their bodyguard. His first task, to find Tobimaru a doctor. His second, to escort them to the Mangaku temple in Shirato. And so starts the journey of a boy who's running from his future, and a nameless warrior who's running from his past. Together, they'll find the courage and strength needed to fight and overcome these challenges, so that one day they can stop running and perhaps finally live in the present. As mentioned earlier, Sword of the Stranger was released in 2007 by Studio Bones. Which, a little about the studio. Studio Bones was actually founded in 1998 by former staff members from over at Studio Sunrise. You know, the studio that famously gave us Cowboy Bebop and The Vision of Escaflowne, meaning that many Bones staff members came with the talent and experience of working on those successful projects. And you can definitely see that influence in the work that Studio Bones has released. And just like Studio Sunrise, Studio Bones is also divided into smaller studios. This allows teams to better concentrate on their own assignments without distraction or too many moving parts. Sword of the Stranger was created over at Studio B, the same studio responsible for producing Eureka 7, Space Dandy, and more recently, Mob Psycho 100, which is pretty cool. Now, the film was directed by newbie director Masahiro Ando and written by Fumihiko Takayama, with Naoki Sato providing a wonderful musical score. I mean, it is just epically divine. Which honestly, when you have a movie that falls within the jidaigeki chanbara genre, meaning a period drama with sword fighting / samurai, that's filled with characters who are these lone wolf stoic types, you know, the ones who barely engage in conversation, much preferring to let their swords do the talking for them. Yeah, we like those. Well, when you have characters like that, the music becomes key in directing the subtle and underlying emotions of those characters, allowing us to get a better insight into their psyche. And this in turn lets the audience know the importance of what they're witnessing. Like we've always said, music is just as integral to the storytelling as anything else. And speaking of the lone wolf stoic types, how can we not talk about Nanashi, our nameless warrior? Akira Kurosawa, who is a legendary director within samurai cinema, created the famous Chanbara trope of a wandering no-named ronin in his movies Yojimbo and Sanjuro. The main character goes by Sanjuro, which translates to 30 years old. Then, when the film got remade, so to speak, in Sergio Leone's spaghetti western, Dollars Trilogy, Clint Eastwood's character was simply known as the man with no name, which then led people to refer to Kurosawa's Sanjuro character as the Ronin with no name. It's a bit Inception-y. Anyway, this trope became a staple within the genre. This was especially true after World War II, when many Chanbara films began to focus on portraying stories about scarred warriors, both physically and psychologically. Again, not surprising after the war. Many of those characters also chose to be unemployed samurai, ronin, who were now free to act as they felt was right. The theme of there being a conflict between ninjo, which is your conscience, versus kiri, which is your duty, was also very popular, and one that we see in Sword of the Stranger. Much of Nanashi's past turmoil stems from this, and is one of the reasons he travels alone. It's also revealed to us that Nanashi, meaning no name, is not in fact Japanese, but was shipwrecked on the island as a child. Not only does he not remember where he came from, but he also doesn't remember his own name. While he served his previous lord, he was simply referred to as Akaoni, Red Demon, or Akabe, red-haired, due to his naturally red hair, which he dyes so that he can blend in more easily. The interesting thing about this is that, did you know that describing someone as having red hair didn't necessarily mean that they actually had red hair or were gingers? It's true, this is what the Japanese said about all foreigners, be they Portuguese with brown hair or Dutch with blonde hair. It was mainly to state that foreigners were different and didn't possess the same black hair that the Japanese did. This was another reason they never accepted the Ainu people as being Japanese. But you can see more about that in our Moribito video. Personally, I feel like I could get used to being called the Red Demon. Suits me just fine. Anyway, the more you know. Following that train of thought, one thing that further intrigued us while watching the film, other than the general action and story, was whether or not the Ming Dynasty really had ever sent an envoy to Japan in search of the Elixir of Life. Like, for real. And well, from what we found, the answer is, well, no and yes. Was there a Ming emperor who sent someone to search for the Elixir of Life or Elixir of Immortality in Japan? Not that we could find any record of. But the first emperor of China, Qin Shi Huang, sure did. Yep, in 210 BC, Emperor Qin tasked his court alchemist Shifu to not only journey to, but also find the legendary Mount Penglai to the east, said to be the place where immortals reside, and bring him back the Elixir of Life. Shifu made exactly 2 journeys across the Eastern Sea in search of it, only to never return. Interestingly, Japanese stories tell that he arrived in Japan and was hailed as a god of medicine and agriculture. I mean, I wouldn't want to leave either. Why serve a king when you can be a god, right? Anyways, Shifu's disappearance didn't stop the emperor from continuing his search for the elixir. As the years went on, he only became more obsessed and desperate to find it, which has led many to believe that in the end, he died from elixir poisoning. Actually, it turns out a lot of emperors died from elixir poisoning. The last emperor to die from elixir poisoning was Emperor Yongjung from the Qing dynasty in 1735 AD. That means that for close to 2,000 years, emperors were going around looking for the elixir of life and then dying because of it. This isn't much of a surprise considering that the main ingredients for these elixirs were things like gold, jade, cinnabar, arsenic, and our good old favorite mercury. One Ming emperor, Jia Jing, was even particularly obsessed with including a young virgin's menstrual blood in his tonics. Yeah, I'll just take a water if you got any. Thanks. He also died from elixir poisoning, but not before inciting a tiny palace rebellion led by 16 palace women who tried to murder him. Wild. But that's a story for our blog. Seriously, this elixir poisoning got so bad that the Ming dynasty had to outlaw alchemy because, well, emperors and other nobles and officials just kept drinking these tonics and then dying. Pretty hard to keep a country going when people are dropping like flies due to their own greed and stupidity. At least, I'm sure that's what some officials thought back then. I mean, almost 2,000 years of searching and nobody thought, hey, maybe we should stop. Or, at least leave out the mercury. No? No one? Okay. We kid. The search for the elixir of life is pretty fascinating, but long. We'll go over it more in depth over on our blog if you're curious. The main takeaway, though, is...
remember, boys and girls, don't put it in your mouth. Yeah.
We would like to recommend watching Sword of the Stranger, though. No danger there. Well, there is for the characters. Never mind. How did this turn into a PSA? Just watch the film, you can thank us later. And tell your friends too, especially if you want them to get into anime. You won't be disappointed, and neither will they. Now if you enjoyed this video, make sure to click that like button to let us know. And you can also hit that subscribe button for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, stay obsessed.